Knobs is a musician and also a YouTube channel that you might have heard about. And I convinced Knobs to let me interview him and then condense our conversation into 5 pro tips. Should I be calling you Knobs?
It's fine. Yeah, some people do. Some people's kids do at this point. So
But like if you go to a party and you meet somebody new and they're like, "Hi, what's your name?" What do you say?
I have never said knobs in that specific case.
Got it. Okay. All right.
Knobs was never supposed to be a person, you know? That might be a pro tip.
Knobs was
When,
never supposed to be a person.
no, when I started it, I didn't know how to use a camera or do anything like that. So I had 2 friends helping me, so it was plural for a reason. That's why I'm not knob.
Okay, so here's a personal question. Is there anyone in your life who now calls you Knobs, who at one time earlier in life called you Scott?
No. That might weird me out. That might be a line too far.
If you're like your parents were like, "Hello, Knobs."
That would weird me out.
I could just tell that you're from the suburbs. And I have this theory, if you feel free to disagree with it, that like the dullness of the suburbs forces a certain kind of like extra imagination on your part. And that if you give a person who's been like trained on that some effects pedals, I recognize in you the urge to do things with effects pedals that I feel that I connect to being bored out of my mind in suburbia. Are you with me on any part of this?
I think I'm with you on all of it.
Love it.
Yeah. Just a couple bored suburban kids trying to do something. It's better than hanging out under the bridge.
Now, did you ever get to the point where then you decided actually suburbia is beautiful? Did you ever get to that part?
I think only the part you're describing, which I can appreciate now, is that it forces a person to be imaginative. But aside from that internal beauty, I don't know. I don't know about that. I've never seen your suburb, but mine look like, but they all look like that, don't they? Isn't that the point?
Yeah, I mean, I have like real love hate because I live in New York City. I don't live in my hometown. My hometown was a suburb of New York City and I don't live there anymore. But when I see pictures of my hometown on like Google Street View, I'm always like, "Oh, it's so beautiful."
Oh no, mine's just ugly. Yeah, you must have been in one of those cute suburbs.
Yeah, I mean,
Mine's
I don't
just
know. I don't know how cute it is. This could be me. This could be just a feedback loop. It might not actually be pretty.
Is it nostalgia? Is it like is it warm feelings of childhood?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. You're asking scary questions now. I don't know.
Yeah,
Is
yeah,
it all
yeah.
just
This is
nostalgia? That's something that I get stressed about a lot. Is like, is my whole aesthetic, is everything I do just nostalgia? Because if it might be, I could see why people would think that, and I don't want it to be true, but I don't. Then I feel like I'm not doing enough to push against that.
I had a discussion recently with someone doing a PhD. His I don't know if I can actually talk about it, so I'll skip over it. But we got into why we like nostalgic sounds,
Hmm.
and I think there are like real reasons why we like them. Like the chiptune stuff that you often use is people like composers working with extremely tight limitations, and it made for cool things. Like it's not just because we played video games it sounded like that. It's an ingredient, but it also is genuinely cool music.
All right, there's so much there I got to ask you about. First of all, very very provocative for me to just hear you say I like nostalgic sounds. Like you'll just say that. It's not inspired by. It's not nostalgia is a part of it. You're at a point where you can say I like nostalgic sounds.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, no conflict there.
For sure. Okay. All right. Okay. Cool. I feel like you're able to say that with like a certainty and a confidence that is me when I say I think the suburbs are beautiful. I'm just like past being ambivalent about it.
Yeah. God, I know what you mean though, because you're supposed to feel embarrassed about the suburbs, and I think I do on a level, but then that's obviously dumb.
All right. So talk to me about you're making a distinction here between like part of why we like nostalgic sounds is because we have these fond memories of playing video games and growing up with them. I think we all every that's obvious to everybody, but you're carving out a separate thing here. You're saying like we could lose that and there's still something attractive that's like inherent to it. Talk to me about
Definitely.
that.
Definitely. So I think chiptune's a good one because from my understanding, they couldn't do chords, or at least at some point they could, but I think like original Nintendo or like Atari, let's say, they couldn't do chords. So that's why arpeggios became such a big deal. I think it was all square waves, and I think it's really cool to try and make every sound possible out of square waves. And I had to do this fairly recently. There was a live reading of a Freaks and Geeks episode fairly recently. God, it was like 4 years ago. A live reading of a Freaks and Geeks episode that I scored with some friends, and I was scoring all the sound effects with an ARP Odyssey synthesizer. So I had to figure out how to make like a school bell and some other sounds with a monophonic synthesizer, and it's really cool. And you can do it. You can approximate so many things, and when you have the option to sample or do all these other things, you're not. I like that limitation. I like that, like pushing up against something, and I think it leads to sounds that are just universally good, nostalgia or not.
Yeah, I like that. I think, if I may, I think there's a pro tip there, which is pick one piece of gear, and then you can only use that piece of gear to do everything you need to do, and it's going to go
So
well.
good. And pick a piece of gear that is not that robust. You know, pick one that seems like it's not up for the job.
What is your music education background?
Um, Mostly just hands-on. Like I learned a bit of guitar in high school, um, but that's it. I went to a vocal class once. I never could figure out how to sing. It's impossible for me. But I think that's the extent of it. And just mostly trying stuff.
So you like don't have a degree in sound design or anything?
No.
Do you have any advice for how to get as far as you did without more formal training?
Mm. I mean, I think it really helps to be curious. Um, that's such a useless answer. Um, I hate that I'm drawing a blank on this question. I don't know that there's a trick. I don't know if there's a trick. I mean, believing in yourself is really big. I think you can I did. You know, you can fumble your way to an understanding of all of this stuff. And I think here's a good one. Is that I do think that you can apply like the same logic as you would to a language to music or to any complex concept, where when you hear two people speaking any language you don't understand, they both seem like geniuses, and they're almost definitely not. It's just a simple system that builds slowly over time, and the complexities of music just come from learning a whole bunch of small bits of stuff and then figuring out through experimentation how to combine them. Like there's no concept in music that I think is really that hard to grasp. It's when you start applying concepts that things get complicated.
One thing that is sometimes interesting for me to think about is like if I look at a real like super guitar player, uh, one of these people whose technique is like super developed, but also you just know that like in their mind, their ear hears everything and knows everything. Like somebody like Guthrie Govan, right? Like if he hears a cell phone, he can just do it on the guitar, whatever your cell phone ring you have. And something that's interesting, basically anytime I ever see that guy play anything, it's kind of interesting to me because I just assume he could play anything he wants. Like
Yeah.
he's got all 12 notes and all he has to do is just pick. He wants those ones to sound like that. And then he does it. And it's just kind of interesting to hear anything he plays. If I think about it, like, well, he could have picked anything and he picked that.
Oh, it's so cool because I still also envy that type of musicianship. To this day, I don't have it. I won't be able to like reproduce phrases by ear. But also, it's kind of my nightmare, really. And it's hard to know if my like musical goals like formed because of what I suck at, and I'm just I can't do that, so I don't try. But for me, having every possible choice seems like a special kind of hell. I'm at a point where my left hand can move more or less as quickly as I need it to, but I can't copy people's riffs. There's something about that extra process of having to figure out specifically where my fingers should be and in what order that didn't come from my own instincts is still very difficult to me. So if that was my whole reference point for like how good I am, I would feel that I'm far worse than I am. But when I'm improvising and just like channeling my own whatever instincts, my fingers are as fast as I need them to be, and so there's like a disconnect. There's almost like a different. You have to use an extra muscle when you're copying someone else's work. You have to be perfect, or it's not going to be the right riff. But if you're making stuff up and creating, you don't have those same restrictions. You don't have to get the A plus.
When did it ever bug you that you couldn't play other people's riffs? That like fact about yourself that you're describing now, was there ever a time when it made you sad?
Well, I was never a very ambitious guitarist. Like I certainly spent a lot of time trying, like anybody else. Like I
Uh,
wasn't like I'm never, I wasn't on my own adventure from the start. Like I learned chords and tabs and stuff for the songs I liked, but I didn't have. I took up guitar kind of late in life, so I just never really thought I would be good at the guitar. So it wasn't very frustrating.
what was your first instrument?
Just sampling and arranging things in Reason, or like not even Reason, Acid. Do you remember a software called Sony Acid? Um, it was just like an early timeline based DAW, and I in high school I really listened. I just listened to hip hop music, so I was into the idea of like sampling old records and stitching them together.
I feel like you just like never second guessed the limitations. You know what I mean? It seems the way you're describing this, it seems like you just knew yourself very well. And there were certain things that you just accepted as like cool, good limitations that you weren't gonna bang your head against. And it worked out.
Basically, by the time I cared about music at all, I had already seen friends of mine care too much and burn out. Um, so I just made a choice that I discovered that it made me feel really good to do, and I just never wanted that to happen to me. So, and these are things I betrayed down the line. Like I definitely I care more now, and I do exhaust myself making music. But in those early like formative music years, I just decided I wasn't going to do anything that I didn't enjoy because I wanted this to be a place that I could go to and feel good. And that was it. That's where like the confidence came from. It's not like I'm awesome and I don't need those other things. It was just like if I don't like it, I'm not going to do it. Music is the place I feel good alone.
Can you talk to me a little bit? Was there ever an era where you were like, okay, I've been really curious and inspired and excited about this, and I set these rules where I wasn't ever going to do anything that didn't feel like work, and that worked. Maybe it just worked continuously until today. But was there ever a time where you were like, to actually be able to get some of the things I want to get or be able to do some of the things I do, I'm gonna have to actually kind of just do some work and have it feel like work and have it just be this kind of like discipline thing?
Eventually, yeah.
When
I
and
think
what was that?
very recently when I decided I really need to finish a record because I kept coming at it with that same attitude and it just wasn't coming together. Which is also a mix of stubbornness on my part because there was a format that I really felt could be done that to me felt original. Um, and so I would start a song with a technique and approach, and then go as far as I could while still feeling good, and then it would fail. And then I would be like, okay, let's try a different approach. And I did this 15 times. I kept trying and eventually realized like, all right, there needs to be some hatred before I can finish this. The last song was mixed yesterday actually, but this has been a process I've been doing for 4 or 5 years trying to finish the same record, and it definitely I make music less now because I force myself to go through that. So it is like something I'm dealing with in real time.
Can you say what the project is or like where I can hear it?
Well, it's not out yet. The last song was mixed yesterday. I'm gonna like get it mastered and do the whole thing. I don't know how I'm gonna release it. I don't have answers to those things yet,
But
but
it's basically like original music by you is what we're talking about here,
yeah, yeah.
and it'll be released somehow.
It better be. Yeah, it'll be released. I think I'm gonna have a bit of fun with that.
I'm dying to hear the music that was made when Knobs decided some amount of hatred is now required. I'm dying to hear that.
I should keep this for my my press, for my marketing. This language.
It's I mean, listen, man, you riled me up about the record. This is the language I wanted to hear.
Okay, when a man learns to hate, what is he capable of?
Not just any man, not just any. We're talking about Knobs here. It's when Knobs learn to hate.
Oh boy, I'm learning a lot today.
How do you decide whether to talk in a video?
Whew. At first I was so sure I never wanted to talk. The reason I did is because I was getting tired. Just plain and simple. Text is way more time consuming. And so I thought that I would be able to save some time and maybe just like get myself jazzed again. I think I've made over 100 demos. So it was around, that mark where I thought I should try something that would be a bit more less labor intensive. But it didn't work because I suck at talking on camera. I'm awful at it. So yeah, this is a
Yeah,
very loose answer to your question, but I don't know if I'm going to talk on camera ever again.
yeah. I was gonna say I was struck that you were at one time thought of talking as less work.
Yeah, I was a fool, but yeah,
Yeah, I mean, there's a way that it's less work. Is if you just do one take and either nail it or don't give a fuck. Then it's less work. But as soon as you start to be like, oh, well, what if I reshot that? Maybe I could say it better.
which is all I ever do.
Yeah,
Yeah,
same. Because when sometimes I do some text on screen and some talking, and I'm always glad when I can do something with text on screen because I don't have to like. As soon as I have to talk and look at the camera, I gotta like think about the background and comb my hair and like look at myself, which is just like I'll do it if I have to, but
it's a
that
bummer.
changes your day. Your day is very different if you have to look at yourself at some point.
Yeah, I had to trim my mustache before this. It sucked.
Yeah, that's the kind of shit I'm talking about. Even see, and I just want everybody to appreciate this that like even YouTube pedal guys got to get ready for their close up.
Yeah.
Body image affects all of us. Since you started doing YouTube, what has been the biggest shift in your thinking?
I didn't know that that I could just pick up a camera and suddenly, be doing all this stuff. There wasn't any permission required from anybody to do that. You know what I mean? It was completely wide open. I just had to decide one day, like, okay, I will make this video. And it was, no one gave me the pedal. I bought the pedal. Like, it was just stuff I already had. And I think often it feels like there's like invisible barriers in place. And at least in the case of YouTube, there sure isn't. You just make whatever you want, and it can lead to like it's completely changed my life. I was working in marine science before that, so none of them, like all this stuff I'm doing now, is just from making a YouTube video one
Did
day.
you go to school for marine science?
Hmm.
Oh, okay. So you like studied that as an undergrad or maybe even beyond undergrad?
Yeah, I did a master's in marine resource management,
Whoa.
and there was
Okay.
no other pathway to like now I more or less do music for a living, and
Did
there was
you
no other way to do that.
did you ever write a thesis or a dissertation?
Yeah, I wrote a thesis on algae.
What was the name of the thesis?
Oh man, something really technical. I was studying this one particular species of algae called Pyridinium bahamense, and commonly known as red tide.
What school did you go to, and would your thesis be a matter of public record for people to look up? Because that would be a fucking cool pro tip.
That would be a cool pro tip. I went to the University of the West Fjords in Iceland. Um, I don't know if it's. I think it actually has to be
That was my
public
thought.
record. That's an interesting one.
I'm gonna see if I can find it. I'm gonna see if I can find your thesis. I just think anybody who ever wants to do the most hardcore pro tip I've ever given on my channel about hardcore pro tips, I have no problem saying that the most hardcore pro tip is going to be go read Nobbs's thesis about marine biology.
Wow, this could be opening up a whole chapter for me.
I would love that.